Hey folks, how you doing? Um, yes, it is I once again, your person who talks about things. I'm coming to you live on this 16th day of September 2025. Once again, to discuss what happened last week in America when Charlie Kirk was assassinated. As you probably heard, they've arrested a suspect who they believe, who the authorities believe, is responsible for the shooting and killing of Charlie Kirk. And the 22-year-old man in question, Tyler Robinson, has apparently some connections uh, to various, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. He has political beliefs, possibly, that may or may not tie him to one faction or another. I think the investigation will bear that out in time. I've heard rumors or reports on both sides of the political aisle in America that say that he was, on the one hand, he was a right winger, possibly even a Nick Fuentes acolyte. That was apparently debunked. I heard rumors that he has or had a trans roommate, and that possibly uh, shows that he was, of the opinion that Charlie Kirk was anti-gay or something like that. Um, Again, I think all of that will bear out in time, whatever the motives were for the killer to do what the killer did. And that's assuming, again, that they even have the right suspect, because we still have to give the presumption of innocence to the accused. That's how the law works, right? So if they have the right guy, which, I mean, sure, the evidence seems pretty well stacked. They said they have his DNA from the roof of that building and where he put his palm down when he was jumping off. So it seems pretty likely, unless there's some other extraordinary reason for it. Seems pretty likely that they have the guy. He was reported to have admitted doing it and leaving all kinds of, saying all kinds of things. Like in Discord, he said he has to go pick up a firearm somewhere, or something like that, which isn't necessarily an admission of any kind of guilt, but a person could be going to pick up a firearm somewhere. It's not unusual, especially in America, and especially from a guy from a family who is known to be a family of people who were, gun enthusiasts. They like to go out and shoot. I think they like to go out and hunt, from what I read, um, which makes all of that kind of alibi even more plausible, right? And anyway, it certainly does leave a lot of questions that have yet to be answered. Let's just put it that way. Now, is it possible that all of those things are true, and on top of that, or that whatever is true from those things is true, and on top of that, the guy was a Mossad agent or somebody acting on behalf of Israel or the Israeli government in some way? I mean, of course, spreading among the extremely virulent anti-Israel crowd who couldn't even wait 24 hours, couldn't even wait an hour, apparently, before accusing Israel of assassinating him. In fact, I think the first reports of it were that Israel killed him before he was actually pronounced dead. Interesting, right? That people who are known to be virulent anti-Semitic content creators or content reposters on social media would suggest such a thing before they actually knew the guy was actually dead. Which doesn't necessarily mean that the extreme right killed him. Of course not. I mean, they may have, but we don't know. Like when I say the extreme right, I mean the killer may have been an extreme right wing, but again, we don't know. We are still at the stage of the ongoing investigation, with the suspect having been apprehended based on apparently admissions that he made and family that heard those admissions and then reported it to someone who then reported it to the police. Again, the guy's father, the suspect's father, was or is reportedly a retired former member of the sheriff's department. He was a sheriff apparently for I think like 27 years or something like that. So quite a long time. Apparently a very wholesome middle class American family who, loved their kids and had the good fortune of doing everything right by them. And generally being apparently a good family. Apparently the kid did really well in school too, which again belies the notion that only poorly educated people create or cause such crimes to happen. Obviously, that's not the case, especially not when it comes to assassinations for some reason. High-level political assassinations, even when it's not of a politician, but politically related assassinations, are usually carried out by people who are actually educated in some way. They may not have gone to college or whatever, but they're still educated in some way. Still, professional in some way or on that path. But again, we don't know. We like until we actually have a conviction, we don't actually know that the suspect, or we can't legally say that the suspect is actually the killer, like with a confirmation from a court trial and a jury, right? Or an admission of guilt in the court, if he says in the court, if he pleads guilty, for example, if he doesn't contest the charges. So today is Tuesday, right, the 16th of September again, which means apparently today, reportedly, the suspect is going to be charged with the murder of Charlie Kirk and a bunch of other related gun charges, like using the gun illegally in an open space, all those kind of things. But we will see exactly what comes of that, because after he's charged, then there's going to be obviously more digging by the investigators. There's going to be more finding of fact by both sides, right? His defense team will obviously have to put together some kind of alibi or other, potentially legal argument. Maybe they say he was insane. Maybe they say, who knows what they'll say. But they'll make some kind of claim. Right? He did it. Who knows what? If he was bribed, I guess at that point they might say, yeah, he was bribed. If he was influenced to do it by some outside party, they might put that forth. Or, they might just make that claim falsely, right? Try to get him out of it completely, or try to pass the buck onto someone else by, scapegoating some other entity or people or who knows what. Like, we don't know where this is all going. Right? But if he pleads innocent and denies all charges completely, well, then we have a different situation, because at that point we need to find actually who is possibly the real suspect. If there's a lack of evidence beyond obviously the word of the suspect, they'll need to dig and see if he is actually the person that is responsible. So there's a whole procedure. I do not expect this will take many years, but I do expect it will probably take at least 6 months to a year for this whole process to go through, just because of the legal everything that needs to go through, all the legal steps, the legal everything. That's the technical term, boys and girls. Um, so we will see just exactly how the process pans out. But in the meantime, these conspiracy theories that keep showing up everywhere, like the Jews did it or something. Am I what? No, no, I don't think he was assassinated by Israel, bro. My point is, he no. Here's why I don't think he was assassinated by Israel. Okay. By the way, I'm coming to you from Israel. Um, Israel has no interest in assassinating one of its staunchest allies. Okay, Charlie Kirk was an amazing friend of Israel. He had absolutely no reason to be assassinated. There was absolutely no reason for Israel to assassinate him. That kind of accusation is just blatant anti-Semitism. Okay. Now, is there a 1 in a billion chance that something we don't know happened? Yeah, there's always probabilities. Okay, but the probability, the realistic probability that like more than 99.9999% chance. Yeah, and I would say it's 100% because I really would doubt any claims that Israel was responsible for killing him. Um, the probability that Israel killed him is extremely minimal to negligible to non-existent because, again, he was one of our staunchest allies. He, was not extremely critical of the Israeli people. He was critical of the government, just as which is fair game. I mean, look at Israel. There's people in Israel who are extremely critical of the Israeli government. And we have a very divided country when it comes to like our politics. Right? Our local elections or our elections are not exactly completely unified. We don't all vote for one party. We vote for many parties, and people tend to vote for different candidates on a regular basis. And there are many parties in the Israeli government. That's why, or in the Israeli Knesset, which is the parliament, which is exactly why we have coalition governments all the time, right? So just keep that in mind. Like Israel is a very fractured place when it comes to our politics, but that doesn't mean we're not a unified nation when it comes to like our national interest, because we are all living with the same existential threat. At any moment, we could be attacked by one or more nations, and we need to defend ourselves against them, just like we did on October 7th and since then. And in fact, we've been attacked by 7 different nation states or state actors or quasi-state actors, like the Houthis and the Hamas. So it is completely insane to think that Israel would have an interest in, like, Israel doesn't have a hell of a lot of friends in terms of countries right now around the world. Look at how many condemnations Israel has been subjected to since October 7th. For what? For defending itself against genocide, against an actual attempted genocide by people who said they want to commit genocide again and again and again and again until our country's wiped out and all of us are dead. And yet we're the ones being accused of genocide, and we're the ones being condemned by the UN, even though we've shown literally no interest and no intent in doing that. Yeah, it's a bogus and ridiculous claim to suggest that Israel is responsible for his death. To answer your question, where are you? I'm in Israel again. I'm in Israel, and yeah, it is insane that people would think that Charlie Kirk would be assassinated by Israel. But you know what? You get insane claims in the real world all the time. Like, that's not a surprise. Anyway, so yeah, don't believe those conspiracy theories. That's at least my opinion. I mean, sure, do your research and all that. Keep up on, don't assume anything. It's a legal case, but the probability that he was killed by Israel is so small. It is insane and also ridiculous. And notice how it comes from, of course, the usual people who just cannot help themselves but accuse Israel of everything that's bad in the universe. You had a flood in your area, or it must be the Jews. You had a drought in your area, it must be the Jews. Like, it's just these crazy knee-jerk reactionary anti who are just blatantly anti-Semitic. Like, I don't even know why they pretend not. It's kind of lame and pathetic that they're that weak and cowardly that they can't even admit their own hatred. So anyway, that's my short little video for you right now. We'll be back in a bit talking about something completely different. All right, folks, take care. Peace.